Welcome to part 2 of my Keytar repair video. And sorry it's taken a little while to get this out, but this project's one of those projects where you just end up going down this really deep rabbit hole and you never quite know if you should just give up. But I've stuck with it, and along the way I've learnt so much, you wouldn't believe it. So let's have a quick recap. Well, most of the trouble I've had has been with this main board. First of all, I identified that the clock signal was not coming through properly. So we have this crystal here, and that's sending out a 4 MHz signal to the main CPU, which is converting that into a 1 MHz signal and sending it down into, oh, where is it? I think it's that one, flip-flop circuit, a flip-flop chip there that halves it and then feeds it into itself and halves it again, getting it down to 250 kilohertz, which is the clock speed that the MIDI output requires, the serial output. MIDI is just a serial interface after all. So that fixed a few things, and then the analog outputs on the the analog controls seem to be sending MIDI out, so I realized that most of the stuff in the CPU should have been working, but none of the other buttons, the switches or the keys were working. So I traced it down to these 3 chips at the bottom, and they are decoders. So how does this work? Well, there are only a certain number of inputs into this main CPU, and so it can't read as many inputs as there are buttons. So there needs to be this whole system where each of these chips reads a few of the inputs switches at a time. So this this main CPU is sending binary output, basically binary numbers through a few pins, maybe say 3 pins, and you can send a binary number from 0 to 8, I think, with three pins by turning each one high and low. And then each one of these decoders would convert that binary number into an output and pull one of their outputs low, turning each one of the groups of inputs on and off. So each one of these chips controls a different set of inputs. One controls a few bits of the keyboard, one controls some of the buttons, and so on. So it turns out that most of these chips are still available, and they're pretty cheap. So I just went ahead and replaced pretty much all of them. These 2 here control the LED outputs, and I noticed that one of those was a bit dodgy, so I replaced that too. So essentially, apart from the main CPU, the analog to digital converter, and this one LED driver here, I've changed every single one of the other chips and managed to get some MIDI output out of it. Oh, cool. Oh, now. Excellent. Oh, amazing. But when I tried the keyboard, that wasn't working very reliably. So the keyboard itself needs a service, and so that's what I'll do next. Imagine if these are going to work, because even a slight amount of this disgusting dust on the contact would stop it working. These kind of spongy silicone rubber knobs with carbon contacts on, you get them all the time for buttons and switches, very standard setup. I think they probably just need a good clean up and it should be fine. This whole metal backplate is really dirty. I want to give it a proper clean, but I'm going to have to take these felt strips off first. And the backplate all been scrubbed in the washing up bowl, and I've left them out. Thankfully it's a nice sunny day, so hopefully they shouldn't take too long to dry. But while they're drying, I'm going to take a look at all the keyboard contacts and give them a proper clean. They all seem to work. Try these modulation wheels. That works. See these metal spikes here on the end of the keyboard. The keys actually kind of just sit around that, so there's a little hollow inside there, and that kind of wraps around that metal spike. Originally there were these little rubber kind of bands around them, so that just sort of protects the key a bit, and if you push it really hard it won't hit the metal. Also there's a slight side to side movement on those keys, so this just protects them from scraping against the metal. But you can see these are in pretty bad shape, lots of them are bust open, and they're certainly quite fatigued. They're very susceptible to snapping. So I won't put these back on, instead I'm going to replace it with some heat shrink. So that's all the key protectors on. I'm pretty happy with that. I think that will work pretty well. Now I've just got to figure out which order the keys go back on. Now I just have to put all the electronics together and test it. 'Cause obviously, although I tested the kind of rubber contacts, obviously the way the keys push down on them is going to be different from how my finger pushed down on them. So I've got to make sure that it still works even with the keys. Let's give it a try. Let's turn it on. Okay, let's test every note. Oh, that one's a bit sticky. Oh, that's annoying. I'll look into that one. All the others seem okay. Let's just do it a bit softer. Oh, that's really annoying, isn't it? Let's get this off. So it's alright when I push it manually. Just try wiggling it around a bit. The rubber bits are in blocks, and then, you know, gaps in the middle, and this one looks a bit dodgy is at the end of one, so that means that there might have been some dust getting to it at some point earlier. Obviously I did clean them all, but maybe I need to have another go at it. Actually that seems better now. Just Just maybe there was just a bit of crap under it. Great. So now I'm going to fix this, the standoff things with some epoxy glue. This is what the standoff used to be like, and this is what it is now. Glued them and they seem to be holding up pretty well. They're still drying a little bit, but I've just made sure they've lined up completely with the holes for the screws. Fingers crossed that might be okay. I might have to reinforce it with a bit of extra glue. We'll see. I've managed to source replacement buttons for all the buttons in this control panel, so I'm going to replace all of those buttons because the original ones have become a bit corroded. These buttons become so discoloured. Look, they look cream, but actually look at the one on the left. That's what the underside is like. It's meant to be that grey all over. Yeah, so I could probably fix that, but I'm going to leave it for now. Just stick to the sort of retro, faded, glory look. So now all the LEDs work. Test out all these new buttons. Yeah, absolutely perfect. Choose the bank there by keeping shift pressed. Let's try the up and down buttons there on the headstock. Working perfectly. That's it for now. We've got most of it working. It's been a crazy rabbit hole to run down trying to fix this, but like all of these projects, it's been really fun to learn more about this crazy old instrument. So, it's really heavy. It's such a heavy thing. It's solid wood, and it feels heavier even than my old Fender jazz bass, but it's so much fun to play, and I don't think you can really deny how cool do I look right now, right? Yeah, right? So a few more bits and pieces to do though, that I'm saving for another time. The main thing is that power issue. At the moment it will only run from this power supply, and that's a bit annoying. It doesn't run from batteries yet. I've got to fix the battery cover on there that's missing, and also that power transistor that's blown out. And then also there's just a ton of like cracks and dents and scratches. Like the paintwork is really messed up and old, and I'm really torn because I feel partly that gives it some of the character, like the discolored buttons here, and I'm pretty sure this logo is meant to be white, but now it's like properly creamy colored. And the same with all the controls here, they're sort of beige and I think they should be grey. It's like, should I restore that, or is it like a beloved old electric guitar that shows its scars from having been played all those years? I don't know, I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments what you think. Should I give this like a full restoration back to new? It would require a lot of new learning for me. Things like gluing these cracks shut, sanding them down, and of course getting this high gloss lacquer finish is something I haven't really done very much before. But anyway, let me know what you think, or is there anything in particular you'd like me to play on it? But for now, that's it. I hope you've enjoyed it. As ever, please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. See ya!